Good morning, good morning, good morning. This is the Common Sense Party podcast. Yeah, we have been out for a minute. This is the Common Sense Party pod. I'm your host, Dottley. This Common Sense Party podcast mission is to inform our listeners on topics that affect the everyday person. Rate, review, follow, subscribe, tell a friend to tell a friend. Please give us 5 stars, give us 4 stars, give us 3 stars, give us 2 stars. Even give us 1 star. If you don't give us any stars, I just assume I'm doing it properly. We are available on Spotify, Amazon Music, Samsung Music, Pandora, Google Podcasts, TuneIn, and yes, we are available on Apple Podcasts. You can contact us at thecommonsensepartypod@gmail.com on Instagram, Facebook, whatever your social party needs. We're also on TikTok. You can also support via Cash App or Zelle. The information is on the About page of our podcast. It is Saturday, June 1st. Geminis rejoice. All right, but today we'll talk what everybody was talking about yesterday. Trump got indicted. But first, I need all my soldiers to come out and vote in November.
Victor, Paul, Nikai, Jackie, Brittany, Randolph, Bonello, Charles, Chinese, Bonsa, 30, Stallone, Moonline, Norman, Little John, Actually, Miami beat and storm, the hopeless country Lord. I know they bring it into the street track on we down. But we call this time west. I'm not going to sound the road. So I read Miami up to study and be fellow. I could well be outside. And then I send them back. They even share the second Internet rules and that's a fact. Last second, it was like a new in the world. You know, blow them like a storm. It was pretty much when we understand. Capture everyone, now we will run it on. Guilty, Russ, Murder put on, Solitude, Jube, I don't be getting the potter. Say me to me, Master Svenny, Jube, I'm bad on a stood in his fire. They are be the don't surrender. Say, I am the Jamban. I have 10,000 families. Be one thing, not Peter Vardy, we back them down again. Say, when you're up, you're up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you only halfway up, you're only halfway down. But in the soda, hands in the air, soda, shaft up in the soda, we the fuck the plus soda, we the fuck the last soda, this sunny channel soda, we the suck the hand soda, show them the trust soda, fast on the tongue. One and now, when you can, I think that. Brother, it's us. We think that one. And I'm one massive. The guy. What do you like? Thousands of people with us. This battle of the guys. Come on, nobody, and this one that carries us. We attack only rare. We attack with no thing. One of the people saw them that their hands up in needed. My suit are free. No mistake, we didn't live. We didn't get no prisoners. No one gets a free. Last second, it was back now. Last second, it was like a storm. It was when him when the other touched. We capture everyone, now we will run it down. Mohammed, Allah, Ernie, Chief, like the fishing vessel. Juve, it's a free jacket in the concert. Say me in my son's running down. Jube, I put on a stitch in fire. The army never surrender. Say I am the Jamban with 30,000 pounds. Be not so much to find it here, my film down again. Say when you're a blur up. And when you're down, you're down. And when you're OT, I'll be up your only. But in the soda, I'm seeing the soda. John fuck the soda. We are fuck the bar soda. We are fuck the bar soda. This Sandy John soda. We are fuck the bar soda. Show them the plus soda. Mashed on the time. What's man posse? Pascal, oh, Turkey, I got to go. Start for you. Huh? Look at what I'm doing. Look at what's on the scene. When it comes to back out, I'm man as the thing. So for look at what. Look at my father. Cause my hands were prepared, you know that we are scared. We rule this country good. They will have our nation. Richie fell on a storm side. Only John Van Hoden. Last after the it was back an hour. Last after the morning, broke us like a storm. It was 20 hours. Rainy on the sky. We got everyone that we were running to. Slaughter. Zebra. Vishon. Round the field, you Juve. They don't resort in the water. See me to me, my son's splendor. Juve. Papa and us spitting fire. The army, they don't surrender. Say, I am the Jamban. With this 8,000 fans. We might say, it's about any long, might send down again. Say, when you're wrong, you're wrong. And when you're down, you're down. And when you only have wake up, you're only happy down. So that, fans in the so that, John fuck me, so that, we don't fuck the bar, so that, we don't fuck the bar, so that, this Sonny John, so that, we don't fuck your hands, so that, show them the class, so that, flash them the car, so that, fans in the air, so that, John fuck with me, so that, we are.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the great Jam Van and Nick Friday. I Need My Soldiers in November to come out and support. Just vote. I just needed a vote. All right. The number one story this week was a surprise because that dude got convicted. He got convicted of 37 falsifying records in the first degree. So 9 times out of 10, he'll probably get probation. But let's see what NBC thought about it.
25 guilty. Count 26 guilty. Count 27. We're seeing that on the screen. Guilty. It's count 28 guilty. Those are the first 28 felony counts here as read by the jury. Count 29 guilty. Count 30 guilty. Count 31 guilty. Count 32 guilty. Count 33 and 34 guilty. That is Donald J. Trump, defendant in New York versus Donald Trump, found guilty on all 34 felony counts. That is how the news broke. We're joined by Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Bob Woodward.
Yep, that's how it was yesterday, where they announced that he was convicted of all 34 counts. It's a misdemeanor, but he'll probably just get probation. And the crazy thing about it, he raised $34 million yesterday, I guess it was. Well, I guess it was 34. Yeah, 34 million from campaign. But everybody's saying this will propel him into the White House. But hey, let's check how people react to yesterday.
The New York Trump case is kind of perfect. Now, you wrote this before this verdict dropped. You said his other criminal cases involve lies about the 2016 election, about the military secrets he stole. But the alleged lies in the People v. Trump strike at the core of his moral putrescence, and Trump knows it. What do you make of the verdict that we saw here today? And also David Frum's comments, considering the way this sits in our nation's consciousness and the way it stacks up against some of the other things that Donald Trump is accused of doing.
Yeah, well, I actually agreed with everything that David said. And in terms of this verdict, the only thing that really, I was surprised by the fact that so many people were surprised. I was in that courtroom for a number of the days. I read the transcript. I followed along very closely. And this case was never, ever close. It wasn't. There was really no defense. The only defense was that Michael Cohen lied on some other occasions, but on the things that he testified to about Donald Trump and Stormy Daniels and Karen McDougal and the catch and kill scheme with the National Enquirer, all that was corroborated many, many times over by documents. So I'm just surprised at how many people were kind of unwilling to accept this case. That said, I think that this case really does capture Donald Trump in a way. It's where he started. He's been a criminal his entire life, and he cannot help himself. I mean, if you go out there and you see his son and him all claiming that they are the victims of some mastermind scheme by President Biden. I mean, it's just silly and ridiculous, and Marco Rubio should be ashamed. I mean, if you don't want to be found guilty of falsifying business records and as a felony, don't sleep with the porn star. Don't lie.
Yep, he was found guilty of the cover-up, not of cheating on his wife. It's not the crime, it's the cover-up. As usual, if you cover up something, you go to trial and you get found guilty, get what you deserve.
Lie about it. Don't pay her off. Don't cover up the payoff. Don't cover up the payoff in the middle of a presidential campaign where you're making an illegal contribution, and don't gross the guy up for taxes who you used as the front man. If you don't want to be held liable for rape like Donald Trump has, don't grab the woman's genitalia. If you don't want to be held liable for defaming the woman that you raped, don't keep lying about what you did and calling her a nut job. If you don't want to be indicted for overthrowing the Constitution, don't start a self-coup. If you don't want to be indicted for stealing classified documents and obstructing justice, don't take the classified documents. When the government asks for it back, give them back. If the FBI serves you with a search warrant, don't hide the documents, and don't lie about it, and don't have your lawyers lie about it. This isn't that hard. Donald Trump is not the victim here. Donald Trump does all of these things to himself. And I agree with David. I mean, once upon a time, the Republican Party was the party not just of anti-hippies, but of personal responsibility and of law and order. What party? Where is that party? In the Republican Party is willing to hold Donald Trump to account for his crimes that aren't really even in dispute. And no one is willing to call him out. Instead, he's going to get the nomination.
Enablers.
And it just shows
enablers.
The moral rot we have on the conservative side of politics today.
Scott Jennings, I think this is for you. Where is that party?
Well, I disagree with a number of things George said, of course. I mean, he's talking about these obvious crimes that were committed. He's talking about the obvious crimes that were supposedly committed, but that's the core of what a lot of decidedly non-MAGA Republicans are mad about, is that there is no underlying crime. I looked at the statement from Maine Senator Susan Collins, who I think encapsulated it perfectly. She said this was a partisan prosecutor who promised enabler. And that's what he did. Enabler. Go after the law, but he promised to go after Donald Trump. And so the issue is here, what is the crime? He's never been indicted for or convicted of the campaign finance theory at the core of this case. And so Republicans are wondering today, what do you have to do to build a defense against something you've never been convicted of in the first place? I'll tell you the mood.
Have you ever tried to talk to a brick wall and tell it to change its mind? That's what's happening to this country right now.
In the party, if you're sort of looking for a generalized attitude, reminds me a little bit about the Kavanaugh period. You go back to the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, 2018. I remember that.
Kavanaugh was a liar, just like Trump. And they dragged him. They proved what they proved, and he still got in because the good old boys network. Try again.
Period being The MAGA people were mad. The non-MAGA, the anti-Trump, the pro-Trump, every wing of the party was vibratingly angry about what was being done to Kavanaugh. I feel and sense that the same thing is happening today, which is why I think you're probably going to see this backfire politically on the Democrats, and they're going to regret it.
I mean, George, I will say I have heard from some people who really don't want to see Trump get elected in the Republican Party who are concerned that this particular case is just going to drive additional enthusiasm for the former president. I'm interested in you respond to that. And you got your face in your hands. What do you got to say to Scott?
I have to say, Scott's lying.
Liar.
And that's the problem with the Republicans.
Liar.
It is continually addicted to
Liar.
What am I? Liar. You're lying.
Liar.
You're lying, Scott. You're lying.
Liar.
Law. You're lying about what the jury was charged to find. They don't have to find an underlying crime. They had to find the intent to cover up an underlying crime. And the underlying crime was pretty...
He called him a liar on live TV. You think they'll have him back on CNN? Of course they are. CNN doesn't care. This is just salacious. But again, he was convicted of covering up the payments to block the information from coming out. That's what he was convicted for. If anyone covers up a crime, goes before a jury of 12. 12. It should be 13. Because it's 12, it'd be 6 and 6. That's a hung jury. But a jury of 12 and found guilty of all counts. It's not a rigged system.
Obvious. What was the crime? You ran for public office, Scott. You ran for public office, Scott. You know you can't take money from somebody and reimburse them if it's a campaign.
I've never run.
You know that damn well. And you. Okay, fine. Well, you're close enough. You're involved in politics to know that, okay? So that's the problem with the Republican Party, is that they are suffused with lies. I don't know why this network is paying Scott. Lies. Show.
As such, continue.
Well, he shouldn't.
Here's my question: If
That's why you come to a gunfight with a gun, not a
why
knife.
did the Department of Justice and the Federal Election Commission take a pass on it?
Well, the federal
they should have been prosecuted. They should have been prosecuted on January 21, 2021.
Let's look at
that's what. We all know this is the thing about Donald Trump. Donald Trump has been let off. He should have been indicted for it. And the fact of the matter is,
hold on.
But he wasn't.
Scott, hold on, please. David,
the Federal Election Commission is a broken and paralyzed institution. It requires a majority. It's got equal numbers of Republicans and Democrats. It requires a majority to act, and it's not acted on anything for a decade because it is broken. And one of the reasons that things are ending up in the criminal justice system is because the internal political system has been sabotaged by the people who then complain that the criminal justice system is the wrong remedy. I want to pick up something else Scott said. This has become an important Republican talking point that Alvin Bragg vowed to punish Donald Trump. That doesn't seem to be true. People are looking at the record to say, where is this promise that you're talking about? I wonder, maybe they've mistaken Alvin Bragg for Letitia James, the New York State did make that promise. Actually was the person who declined to bring a criminal action based on the civil frauds that then won verdicts of $500 million. But he's been actually quite cautious, not as cautious as Merrick Garland, but still quite cautious. He was not someone who was chomping at the bit to get this president.
Scott?
I disagree. I think it's obvious that he wanted to get the president, and I think it's obvious that he did it. These Democrats in New York, if you ask the average Republican, have been desperate from the beginning, and they finally did it. And I'm not a lawyer, but the political impact of this, I am an expert on, and I'm telling you right now, this has done more to unify the Republican Party behind Trump than anything else you could have possibly done. I've heard people on TV last night say, now they got to throw him in jail. We got to throw him in jail. My advice would be, go right ahead. Ask for the maximum jail time. Go right ahead. Because I would love to see you
if being a
Deal with the
convicted felon,
consequences of that.
if being a convicted felon were good for you politically, we would not have had to wait for 230 years of the life of this republic for people to run for office as convicted felons. Historically, everyone has agreed that it's a bad thing to be a convicted felon.
He didn't run for office as a convicted felon. He was convicted after he started running.
He is now.
It's not too late for the Republican convention to swap him out. And
Dun, 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 dun. Again, he was convicted of the cover-up rather than the crime. Paying off a porn star that you had an affair with is immoral, but it's not illegal. He got caught because he asked someone to pay them off and I'll reimburse you before the election. So again, the crime is the cover-up. The crime is not paying the person off. Again, the crime is the cover-up. Crime is not the immoral stuff. Okay. Moving on to our next. We're going to do a little CNN interview today. We're going to talk about how his allies responded to him being convicted. Check this out.
In the moments of President Donald Trump's conviction, conservative media figures took to the air to rip the verdict, slam the trial, and take aim at the judicial system.
Then we're going to vanquish the evil forces that are destroying this republic.
It's a sad day for our justice system, the best justice system ever created by man, the foundation of our constitutional republic. It's literally dying before your eyes.
So are we going to establish a precedent where the president can put his political opponent in jail? It's the type of power we usually see dictators exercise in China and Cuba and North Korea.
And Russia.
So some of the right's most popular names openly calling for the government to become Trump's weapon of choice for revenge against his political enemies.
Here's some of what we've seen from folks online. The Daily Wire's Matt Walsh, who has millions of social media subscribers, said Trump should, quote, make and publish a list of 10 high-ranking Democrat criminals who he will have arrested when he takes office, end quote. Sean Davis, the head of the Federalist, wrote he wants to see a list, quote, of which Democratic officials are going to be put in prison, end quote. Joining us now to talk more about this is CNN's Chris Wallace. He's host of Who's Talking to Chris Wallace on Max and The Chris Wallace Show, airing Saturday mornings here on CNN. Does any of that rhetoric surprise you?
nope.
No. Unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me. That's where it's been headed. But think how different the situation is from 8 years ago. In 2016, Donald Trump's brilliant move was to put out a list of conservative judges who he would consider to name to the Supreme Court. Now you've got right-wing commentators saying, put out a list of the top Democrats you're going to put in jail as soon as you get into office. That's a sign of how much the Republican Party and MAGA world and the political conversation in this country has changed over the last 8 years.
It seems like some of the rhetoric and some of the lines that we hear there, that just gets co-opted by some Republican officials who run with it, even some who you might suspect don't always believe it in their hearts, but that's the political messaging that they go with. How damaging do you think it really is when they're taking aim at the judicial system, especially I think of like Tim Scott saying the judicial system hunts Republicans while it protects Democrats, but, Bob Menendez and Hunter Biden might think otherwise.
The people that you showed on that screen a moment ago, I don't think know better. There are people who do know better, and I think of somebody like Tim Scott and some of the Marco Rubio.
Tim Scott, Marco Rubio, who are sellouts? Yeah, they are. Sellouts. Where are we? Okay, now we're going to go to more reactions about More reactions about Trump's conviction.
Trump's conviction yesterday, which really flew under the radar, was an exchange online between one moderate Republican and the Trump campaign worker. It started with former Maryland Republican Governor Larry Hogan. He's now running for Senate in that state, and he left office very popular in Maryland, a very blue state, and his presence in the race as a Republican nominee creates a real issue for the Democrat. It expands the map for Republicans. Democrats now have to spend money on that race. Obviously, a guy like that is going to have to distance himself from Trump, who's very unpopular in Maryland. And so he sent out a very carefully worded post saying, quote, "Regardless of the result, I urge all Americans to respect the verdict and the legal process." And you see how in-depth this was when you look at the timestamp, 4:52 p.m., right in the sweet spot, minutes after it was announced that a verdict had been reached, but several minutes before the verdict was read. This was the response Larry Hogan received from a top Trump campaign official, Chris LaCivita. "You just ended your campaign. You, Republican governor, who dared to speak the very basic American tenet before a verdict, we should respect the legal process. You are done." This was just part of the sort of mob-style pressure campaign on Republicans to stand behind the felony convicted candidate. Here's Laura Ingraham on Trump TV.
I can't help but notice, and maybe it's changed over the last few minutes, of the people who haven't come out to condemn what happened in Lower Manhattan. I haven't heard from Mitch McConnell again, unless it was in the last 20 minutes. Mitch McConnell stands up with the rule of law and all these great judicial picks, and silence.
Lo and behold, almost an hour and a half later, Mitch McConnell dutifully put out his statement. These charges never should have been brought in the first place. I expect the conviction to be overturned on appeal. This enforcement operation is happening because the Fox people and most of the people in the upper echelons of the party understand the only way to really bring Trump down to end his political career is if Republicans turn against him. As long as they stay unified, no matter what he does, no matter how abhorrent or how dangerous or how criminal or how vile, no matter how much of a threat he is to the nation, if they all band together, then in a polarized landscape, they can basically call him.
They never slept through a bullet before. They've been bullied all their life.
During the trial,
they've been bullied all their life.
In cringe-inducing fashion on any live TV camera.
Look at them, Black Holt.
So this is like the Soviet-style thing. Show me the person, and I'll show you the crimes.
This was a political smear job. This was an attack job. This is what you see in banana republics.
This is the quintessential show trial. This is what you see in communist countries. This is the most outrageous travesty I've ever seen. And the problem here is Democrats have crossed this line.
This is a justice system that hunts Republicans while protecting Democrats. This was certainly a hoax, a sham.
Brian, yesterday was a sad day for America. You had a partisan witch hunt in New York. This is a total travesty. I mean, we should not mince any words here. This is an extremely dangerous day for our country.
Do we want to become a country where we try to jail our political opponents, the justices on the court? I know many of them personally. I think they're deeply concerned about that as we are. So I think they'll set this straight.
There have only been two times in Trump's political career where that dynamic of Republican unanimity is broken, where Trump was near political death. So one was in the aftermath of January 6th, the violent assault on the Capitol that he stirred up, when everyone was criticizing him, when the blood was still on the floor of the Capitol, including Lindsey Graham and Kevin McCarthy. Remember that? Trump's approval rating dropped below 40%, just about the lowest level it reached. Mitch McConnell was testing the waters for a vote for an impeachment conviction. If it had not been for that man, Mitch McConnell's abject, enduringly cowardice, and McCarthy's relentless quest to have the third shortest speakership in history, not to mention the legitimate fear Republican senators had for their families about violence, we wouldn't have this issue now. They could have just voted to convict him and bar him for future office. Done. Ironically enough, the other sort of near political death experience was in the wake of the Access Hollywood tape. And just about every elected Republican tried to distance themselves and criticize him. Republican National Committee Chair Reince Priebus was even considering how to get him off the ticket. But Trump managed to hold things together, due in no small part to the fact that right at that moment, he got a guy named Michael Cohen, his lawyer, to pay to keep the porn star from talking. And so the Republicans never heard about that story, nor did the public, which could have been the political death blow. The lesson he learned is if you enforce this totalitarian unanimity, you can keep chugging along. It's a wildly dangerous lesson because they will do this no matter what he does and no matter how bad it gets.
Okay. Life lessons, kids. That's why you stand up to bullies. You stand up to bullies because when someone tries to bully you, you stand 10 toes down and you do the right thing. They are so scared of losing power. That's why they're in a goddamn cult. They are scared to lose power. They are so scared to lose power that they will do anything to keep it. But I digress. That is the Republican Party in 2024. We have to vote them out. That's why I need my soldiers to come out and vote. Vote in your presidential, vote in your state, vote in the national election. Vote blue, vote independent. Jim Manchin is an independent, but he's a Republican. But let's hear what Bo got talking about Manchin now. Check us out.
Well, howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again. So today we are going to talk about Manchin in West Virginia and a change to his party affiliation. So, Senator Manchin has decided to no longer be a Democrat. And there's a whole bunch of people right now going, he never was. I mean, I understand what you're saying. He was definitely one of the more right-wing Democrats, if not the most right-wing Democrat. But he was part of the Democratic Party. That's no longer the case. He is an independent. This has led to a whole bunch of speculation as to why he is doing this. Is he leaving and going to the Republican Party? Is he, a whole bunch of different things. That's probably not it. If he was going to do that, he would have changed it to, Republican. I mean, it's a possibility, but it seems very slim. Another piece of speculation is that he is going to try to run for Senate as an independent.
No, he's running for governor.
I mean, there's been a discussion about that before. I think it was Schumer approached him about that, or there were reports about it anyway. And then there's the other option, governor in West Virginia.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's more likely. I don't have any inside information on this one, but if I had to guess, that's what it is. Running for governor as a Democrat in West Virginia, well, that D would probably make it very, very hard to run. So changing it to an I might make it a little bit more tenable, because there are a lot of Republicans who are unhappy with their current options. So it gives him a chance to pick up some votes that way. Now, do we know any of this? No. None of that is actually known. It's all speculation. We will know relatively soon, though, because in order for him to continue the way things are being speculated about, for him to use any of those options, well, he has to start getting signatures pretty soon, because I feel like he only has till maybe August to get it done. So he's going to have to start gathering those. Once he starts, we'll know what the plan is. The only thing we can say for certain based on this is that he's not done with politics. There's something else coming. We just don't know what yet. Anyway, it's just a thought. Y'all have a good day.
That's Bo from the fifth column. Got to get back to listen to him. All right. Manchin is just like cinema. They're not Democrats. They're Republicans in disguise. So for our last story or last video, we're going to see how people, Piers Morgan tried to same-sided or apples to apples why Trump should not have been shouldn't have been found guilty or the case being brought to trial.
Into Trump's hands to play the martyr, and it will galvanize his base. We saw last night that the funding websites were literally breaking down because people were donating so much money. Could this not have the complete opposite effect that at the moment gleeful Democrats hope, which is that it might propel him back to the White House?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, I think. Starting with the end, of course it could propel him back to the White House. And of course his fundraising is likely to have gone up through the roof, skyrocketed since the verdict came out. I think I'd agree with you that it's the weakest of the four cases. I think when we first heard the charges from Alvin Bragg, a lot of us were kind of raising our eyes at the number of them. 34, it was actually consistently the same charge, but brought on sort of different dates. And I think that still remains. It is the weakest of the four charges, but it is still the one that was before the courts. And it is still the one that was before the jury. And essentially, you're giving us the New York Post monologue, Piers, which I think is that if you decide that the whole thing is rigged, which Trump has been doing way, way before these cases even came to court, way, way before the 2020 election was fought, he's used the word rigged against him the whole time, then clearly you're just going to propel that narrative to a place where you're feeling happy with it. I think that what happened in the court yesterday was that a jury who had been selected independently, gone through the ringer pretty much to assert their nuances and their leanings and all the rest of it, unanimously came to the conclusion that with the evidence put before them, including documentary evidence, he was guilty of those charges. Now, I think America will decide what they do with that. But I think if you're going to start undermining the rule of law, you set yourself against the American people. You set yourself against the people who have decided that they want to believe in the rule of law, even for presidents.
Okay, Cenk Uygur, you were also not nodding vigorously through my monologue. Here's the point I'm going to put to you on the back of what Emily just said. I remember Bill Clinton having sex with an intern in the Oval Office while he was president. I remember him paying off another woman, I think $800,000 over harassment allegations she made against.
The cover-up.
What I don't remember is Bill Clinton, despite all that, ever appearing in a courtroom and being criminally prosecuted.
Stretching.
And I think this is the problem that Democrats are now going to face, which is the apparent, obvious double standard. It's not to defend anything that Trump has done. It's simply to say, why is he the one who's been singled out for this treatment, given that Bill Clinton and others on the Democrat side were never treated this way?
Yeah, Piers, I'm bilingual. I speak both populist and establishment. So in this case, I think that both sides have a point, but often misstated. So first of all, does the establishment target people that challenge its power? Yes, it does. So it'll go against populist left and populist right. It'll try to do cancel culture. Whenever it wants to target someone, it'll dig and dig and dig. So I've been the victim of that. A lot of people have been the victim of that. But in my case, for example, they dug and found absolutely nothing. So they had to go to jokes from 19 years ago, jokes. So that's when you know someone's as clean as a whistle. But the minute you dig under Donald Trump, just a giant number of crimes spring up because he's a lifelong con man and he's a lifelong criminal. So I think that but at the same time, MAGA has an instinct that isn't wrong. So let me explain that, because the people in the establishment and Democrats can't understand this for the life of them. look, guys, and MAGA gets a part of it wrong too, which is that Donald Trump actually wasn't going to be charged with any of this stuff as long as he didn't run for president again, even though he did all of these crimes. Taking those top secret documents home is mental. It's insane. Of course, his biggest crime is that he had the false elector scheme to do a coup against America. And in this particular case, did he do this crime? Indisputably so. That's why it was so easy for the jury. And you mentioned that Michael Cohen is a convicted felon. Yeah, he was convicted for this same exact crime. They're co-conspirators. This is a serious case. Falsifying business records. Alvin Bragg, as you asked, has anybody else been prosecuted?
You're not answering my question, which is why is one rule applied to Trump, but a very different set of rules applied?
Because they didn't do the same thing, dumbass.
To Bill Clinton, who committed what I would argue far worse offenses, frankly, than what Trump did in the Stormy Daniels case.
No, Piers, what you're misunderstanding is that there's two different sets of rules for the powerful and the powerless. So the powerless will be tried on all these crimes. The powerful are never tried on any of these crimes. What MAGA and you are complaining about is, oh my God, Donald Trump is being treated like a normal person instead of one of the elites. If one of the elites
I'm sorry to push
on his violations,
you're not
allowed to break all these laws.
You're not listening. That's not what I'm putting to you. I'm putting to you.
That's exactly what you're saying.
No, I'm asking you why Bill Clinton was never put through a criminal court minster, given what he did, many would argue, was worse.
Piers, no, not even close to worse. That's
really?
Look, Piers, yes.
Having sex with an intern in the Oval Office and then lying about it to the American people? Paying off Paula Jones hundreds of thousands of dollars to settle a harassment case? You don't think that's at least
illegal.
as bad?
That's not even close to illegal.
Trump had a one-night stand with a porn star 18 years ago. Who cares? He wasn't running for president then.
Of course.
He was a business
Piers,
guy.
Piers, you're not... Okay, listen. Back when Clinton was being impeached, I was a Republican. But as always, I was unbiased. And I said, we started on a real estate deal. It turns out he didn't do anything wrong in the real estate deal. Now we're going into his personal life, and then you dig and dig. It's, oh, well, you denied the affair when you actually had the affair. Oh, what was he going to do? Admit it? And I was like, guys, this is a fishing expedition. But what I'm trying to explain to you, Piers, is that if you go on a fishing expedition on Trump, which I think they did, they weren't going to because he was one of the elites. They were going to. Merrick Garland protected him for 2.5 years. The whole time I'm screaming, will you try him already? He tried a coup, you idiot.
Right, look.
And he let him stay there for 2.5 years. But when you go on a fishing expedition with Donald Trump, you come back with a lot of fish. You come back with whales.
Yeah, but trust me,
you can't stop breaking the law.
Okay, but when you go on one with Bill Clinton, you catch a lot of fish too. Let's bring in George Santos.
No, you didn't. No, you didn't.
Yes, you did.
You didn't.
Yes,
you said that he paid off Paula Jones. That's not a crime. That's not even close to a crime.
Okay, clearly not if you're a Democrat.
That's just settling a case.
Okay, so when Trump settles the case, it's a crime. When Bill Clinton does, it's not.
But that's not. Wait a minute.
Even though in Bill Clinton's case, even though Bill Clinton's case, hang on. Even though Bill Clinton's case,
he falsified business records, right?
It was in Bill Clinton.
Again, this is how you see people try to move the goalposts because it's Donald Trump. Again, if you cover up a payoff to, again, paying a porn star for an affair is not illegal. It's immoral, but it's not illegal. If you ask your lawyer to pay him and I'll pay you back, and you cover it up because you're using business funds for personal use and it's not taxed, that's why you get arrested. You get arrested for the cover-up rather than the crime. But there was no crime for having sex with a porn star.
When Bill Clinton does, it's not.
But that's not. Wait a minute.
Even though in Bill Clinton's case, even though Bill Clinton's case, hang on. Even though Bill Clinton's case,
he falsified business records, right?
It was in Bill Clinton's case, it was for sexual harassment. In Trump's case, it was simply a payoff to keep a porn star quiet. Again, I say that the allegation
you're just wrong on the facts.
Was more serious.
No, listen, you're wrong on the facts. Settlement is not a crime. It is
for Donald Trump.
Not a crime. You could say it's terrible. It's not a crime. So in the case of Donald Trump,
falsifying business records is definitely a crime. 34 other people went to jail for it under Alvin Bragg.
Okay.
So why should Donald Trump be above the law?
Okay.
You're literally saying, even if you were right and Bill Clinton was quote unquote above the law, you're saying, well, Donald Trump should be above the law. He should be able to break any law he loves.
No, I actually
because he's one of the elite.
Okay, I'm going to come to George Santos. I don't think it serves the American national.
No. I'm going to stop it there because they go on to try to give this man a pass on why he should not have been charged in the state of New York for falsifying business records. Again, this is not a political witch hunt. Don't let them fool you on that, because it's not. Because if you as a citizen run for president, try to pay off a porn star with business funds and lie about it, you will be convicted also. So again, don't let them fool you into thinking that this is a political prisoner, whatever. This is from 2016, not 2024. He still has 4 other cases where he can do some serious jail time. So, I know I've been rambling. It is, almost 2:30 in the morning. But, again, we are trying to get out the message that, yes, this man got convicted on 34 counts of a felony, but it's a misdemeanor felony. He will possibly do probation. It's a state crime. It's not a federal crime. So President Biden cannot and should not ask the governor or the mayor of New York to pardon him because he's going to appeal. So they're going to tell you that they need to have, country with civil unrest? No. We don't raise sore losers. If you lose, you get up and you try again. So again, please come out and vote in November so we can get these people out and get rid of this nonsense. What's it called? It feels like it's haze America is into right now, where if you don't like the verdict, you can take a gun or go and say that you're being targeted, or you whine like a loser, like you whine and because you didn't get your way. No. It's not cheating. He got convicted because he's stupid. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Common Sense Party Pod. I'm your host, DOTTLEY. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. Please give us 5 stars. Rate, review, follow, subscribe, tell a friend, tell a friend. Please give us 5 stars, give us 4 stars, give us 3 stars, give us 2 stars, even give us 1 star. If you don't give us any stars, I just assume I'm doing it properly because it's just me on the solo podcast right now. We are available wherever you get your podcasts, available on Spotify, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, formerly known as Google Podcast, TuneIn Radio, Pandora, Samsung Podcast. And now we're available on Apple Podcast. Yes, we're available on Apple Podcast as of May 26th. Yeah, we're available on Apple Podcasts. Please tell a friend to tell a friend. You can contact us at the Common Sense Party Podcast at gmail.com. You can support the podcast via via Zelle or Cash App. The information is on the About page of our podcast. All right. Again, please come out and vote. This is the Common Sense Party Pod. We will see you maybe next week. I know it's been a while since I have done a podcast on politics. I was kind of working the Gwinnett County election, so I was kind of busy. So I should be coming back regularly now. So, like I said, see you next week.
Let's say don't pay it. You go on and this girl some I could charge everyone that you are carry you know rewrite it to me take go by and still eat but not to the turn in the morning with it all straightened all straightened all straightened all straightened around that shot why never straightened it's a young man why never straightened and yes I got that why never straightened me going to why not your head? You be it, and I can part start to turn off. We did it, I need you for an abolitions, and I can be it. The way that I just play like people call and say I'm the main man and the check picking in somebody is free. Listening to the other time and they take some period of the all and so I strike it. You heard of three things. Let that head to chip. Yourself. I need somebody. So you're sure it is serious. You know me a while in his house. Don't know if you check for. I'm the one that's like a hospital names on the chart. Anytime about that, and also ship about the land, and I could be all up to what's it. Those that mean about it. There goes a guy on Christ and more the large and I feel let them down and we're sure and give me out and I'm giving them was like night as I did and we love and an awesome shit or in a way like give me out that in found out and listen to me. You can't let your girl some I could charge her and all that that in found out that like no reacted and I do my take go by it still but not to the chair in the morning and waiting awesome shit and all challenge, all challenge, all challenge. Baby, Armand, why not challenge? And then that, why not challenge? Friday, Saturday, why not challenge? Someone quiet, why not challenge? When parent, you mean parent,